Congratulations, you've just found the #1 over 50 health and wellness podcast on the planet. Hello, and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert and founder of The Silver Edge, and I am on a mission to help men and women just like you build lean, strong, healthy, capable bodies they love for the rest of their lives. All right, folks, so let me ask you this question. Do you ever wake up feeling stiff, achy, or just plain old? You're eating pretty well and you're trying to stay active, but your energy's just not what it used to be. Your joints complain a little bit louder, and maybe that brain fog just won't quite lift. Most people chalk that up to just getting older, but today's guest says it's something else entirely. It's something she calls inflammaging. This is chronic low-grade inflammation that silently accelerates aging, drains your energy, messes with your hormones, mood, and metabolism. So joining me today is Dr. Shivani Gupta. She is an Ayurvedic practitioner, turmeric researcher. In fact, she has her PhD in turmeric research, and she's the founder of a company called Fusionary Formulas. She has spent the last 20 years helping people calm inflammation, balance hormones, and restore energy by blending ancient Ayurvedic wisdom with modern functional medicine. In today's conversation, Dr. Shivani breaks down what inflammaging really is, how to recognize it, and most importantly, what you can start doing today to reverse it. We'll talk about gut health, stress, sleep, mental inflammation, and how simply daily rituals and even your spice cabinet can become powerful anti-inflammatory tools. And we've got a bonus for you listeners. You guys can save 15% off your first order of any of Fusionary Formulas products, including her incredible turmeric blends and some of those Ayurvedic teas she's got there. You guys check that out at fusionaryformulas.com. Just make sure you use the coupon code SILVEREDGE at checkout. That's Silver Edge all run together. All right, folks, let's jump to it. So whip up your protein smoothies, maybe throw a little turmeric in there, and let's meet Dr. Shivani Gupta.
I grew up in Houston, Texas to immigrant parents. And growing up, I would go to India every year to see my grandparents and my cousins. And I would live in the US, growing up like a typical American kid. And I remember every time I went to India, I would get sick and my grandma would just open up the spice cabinet, mix up some herbs, and fix me. And when I was in the United States and I'd get sick, we'd go to the pediatrician, get a script, it would fill for antibiotics, you'd take them, and you'd get better. And I just went through my whole life doing that 100 times, wondering who's right? How come my grandma approaches this differently? How come my doctors in the US approach it differently? And finally, by the time I got to college, I got so sick one time in India, and we ended up going to the doctor, and he gave me a script for 13 medications. And I kind of looked at him like, why? What are you giving me here? And that's when I realized the root cause of so many of our health issues is the gut. We have to take control of our health and make better choices. I had no awareness around my horrible eating and addiction to Dr. Pepper and soda and all the bad things could contribute to what was happening to me. And at the same time, I was looking around, and my entire family in India, from the 60s until the 80s in their lives, were struggling with heart disease, stroke, amputation, diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. And I thought, this is interesting. So my health is going to crap. The generations ahead of me have no idea what they're doing because they're suffering with horrible diseases. And that's my genetics. So is it my genetics or is it my lifestyle? And that's what set me on this path to saying, you know what? None of these systems of medicine are working for me. I need to go find another one. And I looked at my parents and said, we're in the land of like yoga, Ayurveda, all this stuff. Can we go figure out if maybe that's the system for me? And once we did, we realized, wow, yeah, there was so much wisdom there. And it completely healed my gut, my body. I built an incredible immune system. And I realized, gosh, if my family had just known this, maybe inflammation didn't have to take us all out in that fourth quarter of life.
Okay, so lots to unpack there. Absolutely love that, and I love this idea of getting back to the root cause. So it sounded like you were growing up with a foot in each world, right? This more traditional wisdom approach to proactive health and treating health, and then the Western allopathic medicine. Well, we're basically treating symptoms for all intents and purposes. And as a somewhat sickly kid, brought about by maybe a combination, like you said, of genetics and lifestyle. Certainly we can deep dive into genetics and epigenetics and all of that if we want to. But I love this idea that we're maybe the answer is some sort of combination between modern technology. How do I harness the best of modern technology, and how do I harness the best of ancestral wisdom, which has served people for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years? So you had mentioned in there yoga and Ayurveda. Let's start with Ayurveda. So what the heck, what is that?
So, Ayurveda is this ancient system of medicine, health, and healing from India that's over 5,000 years old. So, most people know traditional Chinese medicine because they've heard of acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like in the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture is one modality of treatment. They also have herbology, qigong, and lots of other things that talk about how to live a healthy life. At the same time, Ayurveda was existing in India, which was a much bigger, I wouldn't say bigger, it was a similar understanding that we can rely on plants. We can lean into how we live every single day and how we build energy every single day. And that is what gives us life. So, Ayurveda means the science of life. It's the understanding that we have that power to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment. And so, six of the pillars from Ayurveda that I like to teach are: what is your elemental design? What is your constitution of your body? Are you more air, are you more air, fire, or earth out of the elements? And then we teach a lot about digestive fire and how Agni or fire, that digestion is actually the center of all health. Your mood, your immune system, your vitality, it all comes from gut. And what's cool is in modern day times, we're talking about gut microbiome, gut brain axis, importance of gut. So modern science, modern medicine is proving exactly what Ayurveda said 5,000 years ago. Ayurveda just has a really well-developed toolkit around how to naturally support really great gut health. Then Ayurveda came up with the circadian clock. So right now we're talking a lot about circadian rhythm, circadian medicine, circadian biology. That idea of living according to nature's clock and rhythm with it as being the center of all health is an Ayurvedic concept that we love to teach about in depth. Then I teach a lot about self-care rhythms. So self-care rituals that we do daily can be so detoxing and supportive of overall health. And so I teach a lot about the 12 self-care rituals. And then I talk about super spices, because to live by just the food we eat in the US, which is relatively healthy, but oftentimes not, I like to bring in that there's a lot of spices out there that can spice up your life, but they have profound benefits, like turmeric, like ginger. I have an obsession with the spices and how we can kind of incorporate into our food as significant anti-inflammatory, antioxidant benefits. And then finally, I like to teach that if we really focus on being in rhythm with nature and grounding and being in nature more, nature is that ultimate healer. And so we can bring that peace in more to achieve our health goals. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be complicated. It can be pretty simple.
Okay, yeah, I love all that. I love that holistic approach to health, that personal responsibility for health as well. So a lot in there. I want to have a little fun with this because I was on your website preparing for this interview, and I saw that you have this little quiz there. So I can take a quiz and tell what my dosha is. Do we want to just give people a brief understanding of what we're talking about doshas, and then I'm going to dive into some of these pillars that you talked about, the Agni and the herbs and the spices and the self-care rituals, all that stuff. But let's start with doshas first.
For sure. So Ayurveda 5,000 years ago said, we are not all the same. We're all different. We all have our own individual mind-body constitution. And in Ayurveda, it's called the doshas. And I have a new book coming out with Hay House called The Inflammation Code. And in there, I kept trying to think, how do I explain to people that your dosha is actually the leading thing that you should design your entire life around? And so I renamed the doshas elemental design to get everyone to understand you are an elemental being, and the confluence, the combination of your elements in any given moment is how you should design your entire life. And so when you go on my website, it's called the dosha quiz, or it's called the elemental design quiz based on the month you're going to my website. And it's at drshivani.com. And you can take the quiz and it'll give you a quick answer of your primary constitution. And so here are the three constitutions. And know this, as I explain them, you can have a primary and a secondary. And some people could be three doshic. They could be equal in all three. It's rare. But usually we have some piece of all the doshas, whether our mind is more one way, we're physically another way, we're emotionally another way, or we react yet another. And so that's kind of the nuance I'm trying to bring to the doshas right now with people. So the first one is vata, and people in the West pronounce it vata. And so a vata person is usually thin and wiry. They're usually taller or shorter than anyone in their demographic. This is someone who has like an oval, longer face, maybe smaller eyes, tends to have dry, brittle hair, dry skin. They're the element of air and ether. So imagine the elements and traits of a ceiling fan, constantly in motion. It's going to create dryness. It's going to constantly be moving. Or let's say out of balance, it's more like a tornado. It can be a lot of movement and energy. And so a vata person is constantly in motion. They're those people who could be like a fitness instructor, someone who wants to be standing on their feet in their work life. This is someone who's addicted to marathon running and these kinds of things. Like motion is their joy. This is someone who can have a tendency towards anxiety, tendency towards getting overwhelmed, to starting things and not finishing, which makes them look like a flake, but truly they're creative beings. They have the next great creative idea and they want to move with it. Tendency towards insomnia, because the mind is going to be constantly in motion and they can't settle it down, or tendency towards constipation because of that dryness. And so that's a classic vata person. And then we have homework for the vata person to really get balanced, because vata people can tend to go through their day on coffee, juice, whatever, maybe tiny little chips and snacks, and never eat real meals. And so our first step with the vata person is grounding them to the earth, supporting that digestion, and then maybe slowing them down a touch so that they can be more balanced. Then you have the pitta crew. That's someone all fire. That's the element of fire and water. And in the West, we pronounce it pitta. And so a pitta person is all fire. They tend to have like reddish skin, reddish hair. They might have early graying. Physically, they're more of a medium body, not on the thin and wiry side and not on the more solid side. They're right in between. This is someone who is a go-getter, passionate, ambitious. They have big dreams. They tend to have the traits of fire, so they're sharp in a good and bad way. They tend to be sharp in their words. They're very organized. A pitta person tends to love everything that makes them more fiery. So, and I'm a pitta, so we love hot food, spicy food, oily food, fried food, everything that'll imbalance us. And we tend to get inflamed because we're going too far too fast in our poor bodies. Like, why? Why are you crazy? So pitta people, when out of balance, tend to be like a volcano erupting. It's their closest relationships that get burned the fastest, frustrated, they overreact, anger. And so pitta people, their homework is cool down like a nuclear reactor. Like have a conscious plan of coconut water, cooling food, cooling fruit, like manage yourself. Don't get hangry because then you'll get so angry. And so stay more balanced. And then finally, you have the Kapha crew. In the West, we pronounce it Kapha. So Kapha people are of the earth. It's earth and water element. This is your person who's more solid, big boned, stronger. They have rounder features, round curly hair, oilier skin. This is someone who's loyal. This is the nurturer, caretaker. So in a man, it's like a very solid, grounded man, feels like a mountain. In a woman, it could feel like very grandma energy, loyal, the best friend, the one who loves to feed everyone and nurture everybody. So that energy of Kapha is so beautiful in so many ways. Kapha can have a sluggish metabolism, can be very one thing at a time. And so in a world where we're teaching like work all day and work all night and hustle, hustle, grind, it's kind of the opposite of the Kapha's nature. Kapha can kind of feel left behind because the whole world's trying to go too fast, instead of honoring that we're all different natures. Kapha has beautiful sleep, best sleep of all compared to anybody, deep slumber. Kapha can have a tendency towards mucus. So they are not supposed to have dairy because that water element comes in and makes them more mucusy, tend to more colds and things like that, and have a tendency towards metabolic dysfunction because of that sluggish metabolism. And so the homework with Kapha is support you so you don't get more depressed and having the blues, support you so you don't feel stuck, and support you to have that constant, consistent energy to get up and moving every day. So you're supported and more balanced. So that's a quick explanation of the three doshas or elemental designs.
Elemental designs or doshas. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So when I took that quiz, I was 100% Vata. And as I read through that, you sent me a little video of yourself describing what Vata is. And I was like, yeah, check, yes, check, yes, check, yes. And it was really interesting how with that very little bit of information that you took from me in that 90-second quiz, you had that very insightful capsule of my personality and even my body type, right? That's
Yeah.
quite surprising to me. And as you were going through the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, it reminded me a little bit of our ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph
Correct.
a little bit, those body morphologies that we talk about as a personal
Yes.
trainer. I'm quite aware of that, but I've not really heard a whole lot of personality traits the way this practice does. So I think that's really interesting. And I think that understanding that about yourself, as you said, here's the homework or here's the prescription for that type, that bit of self-awareness can be, I suppose, is essential for starting a healthy aging practice, right? Or continuing a healthy aging practice. Yeah?
Absolutely. I think the self-awareness is so powerful because sometimes we are blaming ourselves. We're pushing ourselves in the wrong way. We're forcing ourselves to follow certain health trends because everyone else is doing it. Like a vata should not hold a big fast. But what are we taught? Do the 16-8. Like that's how you're going to clear your cells. And I try everything. I go to all the conferences. I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
But I also listen to my intuition.
Yep.
And sometimes my intuition's like, hard no,
Right.
hard pass. You are not getting in that tub to freeze to death. No.
Yeah.
And so that's where an awareness of ourselves is so powerful to self navigate the world with this awareness of, oh, you know what? I'm following my nature. I'm following my rhythm with nature. I don't need to fall, be susceptible to all these trends out there just because they exist. I'm just honor myself. And in any given moment, the minute I'm feeling out of balance, the question is, what do I need to do to feel in balance? And when you have that awareness of your dosha, your elemental design on top of that, you can say, you know what? I'm just a pitta who's getting hangry.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do right now. It's that simple. It's not, oh, my life sucks. This is happening. No, no, no. Understand where the mood is coming from and calibrate quickly. And so that's where I love this concept.
Yeah, and I think what you see, especially with social media, we see all these, you had brought up intermittent fasting, but it could be keto, it could be high fat, high carb, low carb. And you have somebody saying, this is the best thing since sliced bread. This is wonderful. I lost 20 pounds doing fill in the blank. And then what you have is a whole bunch of people trying that and failing miserable because, like you said, I've done intermittent fasting and it was a horrible experiment. I've cut out carbs and I was never more miserable my entire life. That's not my
Right.
constitution. I'm fighting something there, right? So just because something, quote unquote, works for one person, I suppose, doesn't mean that it would work for everybody. There are some universal, I believe, health truths. We should all be eating whole foods and not highly processed foods. We should be hydrating. We should be sleeping and managing stress. All of those things I think apply to regardless of what your dosha is. But outside of that, it really gets much more personalized very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's the power of ancient wisdom
Mm.
is we're really going back to what has worked for millennia for billions of people. And so when I discovered Ayurveda, which I'm sure billions have, when I found Ayurveda and it found me, I thought, okay, and I really went with the typical, like I went with a journalist mind. I was like, I wonder if any of this is true. Just because you guys do it in these stinky detox centers in India doesn't mean it's valid. And what I learned was true health transformation comes from self-understanding and really this understanding that body, mind, and spirit come into alignment when we do the work. So oftentimes in the West, we're very body separate, mind
Yeah.
separate. And as a pitta, and really anyone of us in the modern day times will say from our mind, I'm going to do this. And then we're demanding that that body keeps up with what we're trying to do. And I think that's why we fail so much is also, you know what? I'm holding that fast. You know what? I'm going to lift that many times. Like so many times I'm pushing so hard and my poor body's like, I just need some carbs. I
Yeah.
just need to rest. I just need some balance. You can't push on every cylinder at the same time. You can't push your team, your children, yourself, your workouts, your like every endeavor at 110%, which is what is in the pitta nature,
Mm.
really, and in many of our natures. So it's about like, where am I? What is the lifestyle rhythm I should build? How can I build self-care in a really beautiful way? How can I leverage food, super spices in a beautiful way? How can I have gut health that supports me every single day and every moment? So my brain and my mood and my immune system are calibrated beautifully. And thus, how can I have that level of vibrancy and health that I want? That's my goal for everyone is total vibration and energy and that vibrant health we all deserve.
Yeah, vibrant health. I absolutely love it. I often call that chasing optimal health, not being, because a lot of us we're just metabolically sick and that's our baseline and we don't realize it. And so when we think about health, we equate that here in the West with being not sick. Well, being not sick and being optimally healthy they're worlds apart. And so from sickness to optimal health is just a spectrum. And what activities serve me that move me further to the right towards that optimal health and away from sickness, I think is what I'm chasing. And to your point, we here, certainly in the West, certainly in the US, you would agree, I think, that we are very disconnected from our bodies. We're very disconnected from our minds. And we don't even talk about spirit because most of us are spiritually very disconnected. And I love this idea of bringing all of these, the body, the mind, the spirit, that holistic approach to health, because really health is, the way I look at health, it's a very spiritual endeavor. It's this, I'm honoring this sacred vessel that houses my spirit, the very essence of my being. And so I want to do things that honor that, but I want to be able to listen to my body. I want to be able to listen to my mind. I want to be able to listen to my creator. I want to be in touch with these and sensitive to these things. And I think that just in that grind of modern culture, a lot of that just gets lost. And I think that's to our detriment for health, right?
It does. It very much does. I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about there's some universal truths here, and certainly gut health is going to be one of them. And I know that you are an expert in all things inflammation. So let's dig into inflammation. So when somebody says inflammation is bad, let's start there. What are we talking about?
Sure. So people have a lot of misunderstandings around inflammation. We know that when we get hurt, we run into something, the body is going to send inflammatory signals to heal that area. And that's a good thing. Acute inflammation plays a very powerful role. It's protecting the body. The problem is nowadays we are running around with our buckets full, and between the toxic burden, poor air quality, water quality, poor food quality, a lot of stressors, EMF and Wi-Fi, like you name it, processed food, seed oils. We're consuming foods that I don't think are food at all. They're just fake things that we think the body will digest. The body's like, no, I'm just going to store that in some fat cells and wait for you to detox properly. So a lot of things are in the system causing inflammation already, causing trouble. And then here something happens, and instead of acute response that ends and finishes. For example, I was in Italy a couple weeks ago driving a Vespa for the first time, and I hit my knee. And I thought it would just go away. I was like, that'll go away. It'll be fine. Who cares? It's fine. I'm young enough. I woke up today and my knee was kind of locked up, and I thought, oh, really? You're running inflammation, honey. You didn't stop and address the issue. What is it turning into? It's turning into chronic, low-grade, persistent inflammation because the body is having a moment of bucket full and the body doesn't know how to communicate well. And oftentimes, many of us are running around with leaky gut. That's what I learned I had all those years ago was chronic antibiotic use, couple that with stress, maybe poor eating habits, which many of us have. We might be leading lives where we're reaching for fast food or reaching for soda or reaching for junk food that's poking holes in the gut lining. And that permeability, intestinal permeability, is causing leaky gut, and that leaky gut is allowing more and more inflammation to circulate in the system. So unfortunately, we're living in a moment where we're understanding that inflammation's a problem. Then when we hit our 40s, 50s, beyond, we're like, oh, I just have brain fog, fatigue, my joints ache, I wake up, everything hurts. I wake up and my knee pain is the current issue, but something is hurting, frequent headaches, fatigue. I go out to eat and sometimes the food just doesn't suit me. I'm just bloated all the time. Who knows why? That's inflammaging. We think it's not a big deal. We think it's aging, but it's inflammation plus aging equals inflammaging. And we're underestimating what that slow burning forest fire means inside of the body. I know what it means. I grew up watching it. I know what life looks like from 60 to 80 if inflammation has its choice to run rampant for the entire first 2-3 quarters of our lives. End game is metabolic dysfunction, metabolic disease, and all the horrible after effects of being highly inflamed. Unfortunately, we have no awareness around it. We're like, oh, I'm just, aging. This just sucks. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. I'm going to keep partying, having fun with my friends, drinking, eating gluten, eating dairy, eating sugar. I mean, this is a normal diet. So I'm just being normal. Fast forward, we start going to the doctor in our 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're like, oh, this is your diagnosis. It's something itis, arthritis, gastritis, you name it. Itis just means inflammation.
Hmm.
So we're running to 10 specialists. They're giving us 10 new drugs, all based on inflammation. And that's when people finally say, you know what? I don't feel good. I've got a lot of side effects here. I must need a different option. Then they go searching through the holistic channels and integrative medicine opportunities of chiropractic, integrative medicine, functional medicine, Ayurvedic. Then they come find us.
Yeah.
But everyone in integrative medicine is like, hey, I was here and I wanted to show you optimal health way earlier in this end game that we're in now. So can we start talking earlier? So that's my worldview is can I show you the Ayurveda lifestyle right now for free? And then you just don't have to end up at those doors that my family ended up at.
Yeah, you're spot on there with that description. I think most of us, just the popular consensus is this is the way it is. It's all downhill from here. This is a part of aging. I love that term. I have heard that term before, inflammaging, and it's so spot on, right? When we have this, like you said, acute inflammation can be life-saving, in fact, but this chronic inflammation that's brought about by so many environmental factors. It's in our food, it's in our water, it's in our air, it's in the beauty and cosmetic products we're putting on our bodies and we're cleaning our house with. So we're just surrounded by all of these things. Of course, this high stress lifestyle that we live, etc., is all contributing to this chronic inflammation. It's breaking us down. It's making us sick. And as you said, a 20 or 30-year-old is pretty adept at working through that. Of 50, 60, 70, and certainly as you get into, you're blessed enough to be 80s and 90s, not so much so, right? To fight that off if we're continuing with all of those same behaviors and in that same environment. So that begs the question then, for this audience, we're in our primarily 50s, 60s, some of us are in our 70s. What do we do? What's our treatment or our plan, our anti-inflammation plan? How is it? I'm assuming it's not too late, right? We always talk about it's never too late. You're not too old.
Never.
Right on. What do we do? Where do we start?
So I'm a big fan of turmeric first because my PhD was on turmeric. I did my master's in Ayurvedic sciences and was like, this is the best science ever. I get it. I love it. And in herbology class, the teacher was like, turmeric does this, and cilantro is a heavy metal detoxer, and cumins before you cook will help you pre-digest the food. And I just sat there and thought, first of all, I'm lucky I'm Indian. I eat that every day. Second of all, I don't value it at all. Interesting that it does so much. And thirdly, in the West, we buy so many superfoods. We're like, oh my gosh, let me eat moringa and blueberries and salmon and spinach. And like, what else can I find for this voracious appetite called, I know I need to age a little more slowly. But all those spices are full of all of those. And when I say age more slowly, what I'm saying is we know when we start to feel those aging symptoms. And oftentimes we want to reduce the total symptoms as much as possible. I'm feeling it right now at this age, and I'm like, okay, got to work for this a little more now. But it was interesting a few years ago, I presented at a longevity conference on the benefits of turmeric. And to prepare for that conference, it was going to be in front of 500 doctors. So I was like, let me come in with the best slide deck and the best presentation. And as I resat in the science of turmeric and super spices, it was so interesting the level of science we have on what will happen as we age. Cellular decline, oxidation in the system, that rusting that happens in our system. The fact that zombie cells come out, start wreaking havoc and damaging inside of us and causing more zombie cells to occur. The level of chronic inflammation and what that looks like as we age. The fact that we have mitochondrial decline. It's why we have a big focus on mitochondria right now. We all want more energy. Or the fact that we want neurogenesis, but we have this neurocognitive decline that happens. The fact that all cells become a little bit potentially weaker, like we're losing the cellular health. So of course we're gonna have a gut impact and things like that. So when I was building for that presentation, I thought, gosh, I never thought about aging in this way. I thought aging is optional. Like you'll age, but the symptoms of aging are optional. All you have to do is exercise well, eat well, and you'll be fine. But I came to realize it's not that simple. It's really a multi-dimensional effort. Yes, we should exercise and move our bodies very consistently. And there's a lot of science now on lifting and those things. From the Ayurvedic perspective, we're bigger fans of yoga and walking and being gentle to the body. So I do a hybrid. I do both. Then there's a big piece around food and honoring the digestive fire, because that fire is what's going to help you keep processing food properly and absorbing the nutrition of it as you age. So that's a big piece as well when we talk about aging well and health. Then we talk about self-care rhythms. In Ayurveda, we're big believers in detoxing daily in simple ways. So I teach things like using a copper tongue scraper or doing oil pulling to detox. Why? Because we talk about this accumulated toxic burden that increases over time, which is inflammation in the system as well. And so by doing something daily, simple, and light, you're consistently, gently, kindly reducing that toxic burden in the system. So these are a couple of the lifestyle pieces that I love talking about. I also love talking a lot about sleep, because sleep is when you're going to clear inflammation. And so the circadian clock in Ayurveda says that 10 to 2 on the circadian clock is the pitta time of day. So imagine 10 to 2 in the daytime, sun is highest in the sky. It's going to be hottest. That's pitta time of day. Like I said, it's a fire symbol. And so in the same way, 10 to 2 at night is when we clear inflammation. Now, some people say, I'm a night owl. I can't sleep 10 to 2. There's no way. The thing is, you're leveraging that pitta fire and using it for your brain to go do cool work and cool projects. Instead, force yourself to start moving that bedtime closer to 10, which is when your melatonin release happens in the body naturally, asking your body to go to bed. And instead of completely bypassing it, build the sleep hygiene rituals it takes to get that sleep. 10 to 2 is when you're going to clear that inflammation. And so over the last 10 years, I really worked hard after my turmeric PhD to work with people and say, look, you can use turmeric all day, but if you're not going to sleep at night, you're not going to win, because you're going to be accumulating the inflammation anyways, and you're never going to clear. So it's really a very holistic view of we can win at inflammation. It's a beautiful combination of lifestyle shifts, conscious, healthy eating and exercise and movement and sleep. And then if you want quick solutions, reach into the Super Spices kit, because it can get you there faster.
All right. I love that. I suppose I have been sort of, without really realizing it, I've been espousing a very Ayurvedic lifestyle, because that's really what we're teaching here, right? We want you to move. We want you to be strong. So that's that strength piece, but we also want you to have that restorative movement, that walking practice, that gentle movement every single day. We want you to get off of the standard American diet and eat real whole food. Start there, get as much, just honor your body with what you're eating. I've said many times on this podcast, I think that sleep is the foundation of over 50 health. Just when you dial in your sleep, everything else in your life gets better. And then, of course, being able to manage stress, reducing that toxic load, all of that's going to create this optimal health that we're all chasing, as opposed to a hack, or as opposed to a pill or a potion or a smoothie. Now, I'm very well versed in all the superfoods, right? Obviously, as a nutrition coach. Super spices is something that I've got to admit, I've seen it, I've read some things on it, and I'm guilty here. I don't use many super spices. I have played with them in the past. So that's something that's new here. You had mentioned, obviously, turmeric, which is, you've got a PhD in turmeric. I absolutely love that. But you said cilantro, cumin. So when I look in my spice cabinet, is this something I want to be incorporating daily? And are the dried things that I find in a grocery store, is that adequate? Or do I need to go to a herb shop or buy these online? What's best practices if I want to start incorporating more spices into my life?
Question. So it really comes down to which one. So when it comes to ginger, for example, I love fresh ginger. I think having fresh ginger on hand to be able to chop up and add to dishes is wonderful. If you're not going to use it enough and it's easier to keep everything in dried spice form, that's also really beneficial. So cumin seeds have a significant benefit. Coriander, you can even use ground cumin, which I find is used a lot in my Mexican food dishes that I eat. You can use red chili powder, we use fennel, we use fenugreek, we use cardamom. Each spice has benefits. So an easy way to get started is to look up some Indian recipes, because in Indian food, we are going to incorporate them all. Yeah. I know that nowadays we're very protein forward in our diets. So one way to add variety of flavor, so we don't get so bored with our protein, is to incorporate spices and use them in different ways. And then when it comes to turmeric, what I like to highlight to people is a lot of them are buying fresh turmeric. And the thing is, in ancient Ayurveda, we didn't really use much of the fresh turmeric. We took turmeric and dried it into the spice. And that dried spice is what most people are used to using and seeing and things like that. But we now know that dried turmeric, or any turmeric really, is better absorbed by using black pepper or a healthy fat. That black pepper increases the absorption by 2,000%. The healthy fat increases the absorption and helps it cross the blood-brain barrier. So when you want that neurocognitive support, eat it with a meal or add some fat when you're going to take it. And then in the recent years, we took that same dried turmeric and learned that out of the entire turmeric plant, 3 to 5% of it is the curcuminoids. And those curcuminoids are the most effective at reducing inflammation. And so each plant is so different in that way. The moment we learned that about turmeric, there became this explosion of science. And so now there's over 17,000 scientific studies that talk about how anti-inflammatory turmeric is. There's a fascination with it because it impacts those top line pathways of inflammation and thus has effect on all the others as well. So for me, turmeric is my area of passion. I love utilizing it, and I created formulas around it to help people. But what I like to educate on is, look, all the super spices have benefit. However you can incorporate them is great. In Indian Ayurvedic cooking, we heat any ghee or butter, and we usually heat some of our spices. So we'll heat those cumin seeds up first before we start cooking with them. So there's a method. So I do recommend looking up some recipes, but incorporating them will give you the health benefits. They'll give you the anti-inflammatory benefits. They have antioxidant benefits, gut and immune supportive benefits, and for your palate. It's going to kind of open things up. It's going to create more variety. So it's not just salt, pepper. It's some new flavors in there as well.
All right, absolutely love it. So folks, if you're like me and you've just maybe ignored some of those spices in your cabinet, get them out, play with them, experiment, have fun, do some research, find some ways to get more of those in your life. It's sort of like, we hear eat the rainbow all the time when it comes to our fruits and vegetables. I suppose we should probably maybe eat the alphabet when it comes to our spices, right? Get all of them in there. Love it. All right, I want to go back because you had also mentioned that you're a big proponent of, as opposed to detox in the way in the way it's often sold to us, you mentioned, I like daily rituals, and you had mentioned copper tongue scraping, something I do. And you mentioned oil pulling, something I've played around with, but it's not something I do commonly. So a couple of oral biome healthy things there. Talk a little bit about some daily detox rituals, because when you said, for example, with the tongue scraping, I don't think of that necessarily as a detox ritual. What am I doing there when I'm doing something like a tongue scraping or oil pulling? And maybe quickly explain what each of those are for people that's new to them.
Absolutely. So we in Ayurveda recommend when you wake up, first thing, set an intention for the day. Like start with conscious thought as opposed to unconscious. Oftentimes we are phone first, email first, social media first. And so a lot of times I've had to break that habit and say, no phone first. How about we actually do our spiritual practice first and make space for that and then move on. And then Ayurveda talks about taking a copper lined cup. This one's not copper lined, but finding a copper lined cup, having water in it overnight, and hydrating first thing in the morning. Because hydration is going to cause peristalsis. It's going to cause the system to move. So you have that first bowel movement, which in Ayurveda is very important to us. We want to make sure that's happening. That's how we get toxins out of the system. So we need to start there. Then we recommend brushing your teeth and doing your tongue scraping. So tongue scraping means take any metal tongue scraper, could be copper, could be steel, and gently scrape the tongue 7 to 14 times. And when you're doing this, Ayurveda teaches that just like in reflexology, we talk about all the organs being reflected on the bottom of our feet. That's why when you're pregnant, you can't get reflexology, it'll induce labor. So in the same way, all those organs are on your tongue. And so when you're scraping the tongue, you're gently scraping all your organs. You're gently detoxing them. You're taking this substance that we call ama. It's like this sticky residue in us, the toxin burden that's within us, and it gently helps the body start to reduce that and remove it from the system. So tongue scraping is very powerful, and we also teach that it turns on the digestive fire for the day. So those who struggle with constipation or a digestive system that maybe isn't as strong and powerful as you want, you don't have a strong fire, tongue scraping, I've actually healed people's constipation with just tongue scraping, which I thought was insane, but it was that simple. So these natural, simple tools out of Ayurveda are so powerful, and we think of them as like little habits, but each little habit has a cumulative effect. And then oil pulling, we know that oral microbiome health and oral health is tied to heart health. That's been proven
Sure.
for decades now.
Yeah.
We know now because we talk so much about gut microbiome that oral microbiome is tied to gut microbiome. What you put in this mouth, it will go straight to the gut. And it's communicating. And so Ayurveda actually wants you to have a very clean mouth so that the minute you put something in here, your body's like, oh, I know what she's eating. She's eating a broccoli. Let me send the right enzyme to process what she's about to send down the pipes. And so oral microbiome, when we take any food grade organic oil and we swish it around the mouth for 5 to 20 minutes in the morning, what we're doing is we're accumulating all those toxins. During sleep, our body's detoxing, clearing the lymphatic systems. We're taking all that gunk, collecting it into that oil, and then when you spit it out, you're taking all that toxin out with it. But remember, take that oil and spit it in the trash, not your toilet, sink, or shower, because you'll clog your pipes. And I know 5 to 20 minutes sounds really weird. It just, you can do it during any other habit while you're showering, getting dressed, making your morning coffee. It's just, you're quiet because you can't open your mouth. And then thirdly, there are oils out there nowadays that aren't as thick as oil. So you can use coconut oil or you can find an oil pulling oil that makes it a little more palatable. There's some with mint in there because we're used to mint being part of our morning hygiene habits. But I love starting with those two simple habits, and they're a powerful reminder to me when I skip it. I'll be like, you know what, my mouth doesn't feel as clean. Or if I almost leave the bathroom and I forget, I'm like, wait, you were supposed to do one act of self-care today. Like start with you first before you go serve everyone else all day. Like let's take care of you with these simple habits. And so it's a powerful first anchor of self-care in your day as well.
Amen to all of that. I absolutely love it. So let's start there at the beginning. I'd love that you say, let's start our day with intention. Let's start it with sacredness. Let's start with a meditation, a prayer, a spiritual practice. That's the last thing I do before I fall asleep. And the first thing I do every morning, I'm going to start there. And I'm giving thanks basically. So that's a gratitude prayer practice for me. Of course, then it's into some oral hygiene. Like I said, I am a scraper. The whole 5 to 10, I've not heard 20 minutes. That's a lot of oil pulling, but that's something I need to bring back in. And I'll throw this out. I think you would agree. If those of you that are using a mouthwash instead of oil pulling, that is destroying your oil. Yeah. If you're not on YouTube, Shivani is shaking her head and mouthing, no.
No,
Yeah, please.
please
Yeah.
no mouthwash.
The Listerine, the
I've thrown it
scopes.
all out of my
Yeah.
house. It's so bad.
It is trashing that oral microbiome. And Shivani had mentioned earlier that is directly tied to gut health because that's where digestion begins. It's directly, and this is a little less obvious, but it's directly tied to circulatory and heart health as well. That's another rabbit hole. We don't have to go down here, but just know that we are honoring our body by taking care of our oral biome. So if you've got a commercial toothpaste, maybe do a little bit of research, get rid of that, get something that is, hit me up. I'd be glad to give you some of my personal recommendations, but we want to start the day, like you said, Joanne, with honoring our body and taking and honoring ourselves, this act of self-love, self-care before I go out and serve and, conquer whatever your energy is. Let's make sure we're taking care of ourselves first. So, all right. So when you say detox in that sense, I absolutely love that. That's that daily practice you had talked about. I think earlier you maybe even mentioned, hey, I give my clients these 12 self-care rituals or something like that, right? So we want to make sure that we have this rhythm of self-care. Absolutely love it. All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here a little bit, I was listening to one of your recent podcasts and you mentioned a phrase that I have not heard. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about mental inflammation. So you talked about mental inflammation. We've just talked about all this physiological inflammation, chronic inflammation, why it's bad, what we can do to conquer that a little bit. What's mental inflammation and what's my go-to toolkit to help with that?
For sure. So when I was writing my book, I was finishing up all the chapters and I kept thinking, how do I explain to people in a phrase that it doesn't matter how much we do for the physical body? I can sleep beautifully and track it and measure it. And I take my progesterone and I have a sleep tea I created and a sleep gummy I created. And I do all of that every night. I could take my turmeric supplement all day that I built, which is super effective. I could eat well, sleep well, move well, poop well, all the good things. But if I allow mental inflammation to be the program that runs all day long, nonstop, and I allow the mental inflammation of my life to run the show, I will still lose at winning at inflammation. And that's a really powerful
Hmm.
realization of, so many of us are sitting in our sympathetic nervous system. We are in high stress all day. We're never dropping into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. We know a lot about vagus nerve and nervous system right now. It's a conversation. But what Ayurveda said was every cell in your body, every part of you is listening. And I'm a pitta. So half my day, I am usually like, you didn't do this. You're behind. You didn't respond to that. Like my mind is kind of beating me up from the inside half the time. And I thought, you know what? You're going to have to stop that. You're going to have to find a way to take that running monkey mind and silence it. And I know that that's why Ayurveda taught us meditation, pranayam, yoga, breathing techniques, gratitude practice. All that intention piece was to help us stay calm. But we are living in modern day times. The time we live in is unprecedented. My own cell phone all day can send alerts like this just happened somewhere on the planet, these
Hmm.
people are suffering, et cetera, et cetera. And so I created a new self care habit called Tea Time is Me Time. And this habit is my one way to create anchor points in my day where I pause, I tune in, I drop into the parasympathetic nervous system, and I have an anchor to remind myself to stop it. Stop it with all the noise, stop it with the chaos, stop it with the thoughts of always being behind and being stressed about who knows what topics. We all have our own topics, whether it's our children, our parents, our friends, whatever it is, our family. And so tea time is me time is hot, beautiful tea. For me, I love Ayurvedic functional teas that do things. But drinking a hot beverage alone is going to activate the parasympathetic, just like humming and gargling and things do that. It's a moment to really tune in. For me, I always ask myself, what are you doing today? Are you making it so you get to eat today? Are you going to usually I'm like, what have you not done that you really need to get done? Have you structured your week so it's good for you? And sometimes my intuition will say, no, you did not. You should cancel that. You know, you don't want to see those people, or you should cancel that dinner. Or you need to make more space. And so that intuition is really what I'm trying to train people to come back to and understand that if we had that two-way communication with our own mind, with our own intuition, we have such power to stop mental inflammation in its tracks instead of allowing it to run the show. And thus, that mental inflammation can stop causing all the physical inflammation that we're struggling with. And then we're trying to go do 50 health habits like crazed people
Yeah.
to reduce it. It's completely tied together. And we have that power to reduce it and thus win at inflammation.
I love it. Yeah. So back to that body, mind, and spirit, that holistic approach to health, mental inflammation. So just a question on your tea time for me time. I love that concept, by the way. Is that in your calendar? Is that something that you honor and say this at this time every day? This is my ritual. Is that how you incorporate that, or is it more ad
For me,
hoc?
yeah, I have a rhythm. I'm gonna have tea every single day of my life at 7, at 10, post lunch. 3:30 is high tea. I'm gonna have a 5:30 when I get home with the kids before I embark on soccer, etc. I have sleep tea built into my self-hygiene ritual for bed anyway, so it's always gonna happen at 9. So I have certain anchor points where in the afternoon, for example, if I'm hungry, I'm like, are you hungry or are you just thirsty? Are you just needing something to calm you down? Don't reach for the crackers and the
Hmm.
cookies or the chocolate. Reach for tea. Tea is a 0 calorie solution
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. It calms you down. It's nurturing. It can have benefits. Green tea we know is powerful antioxidants. So I reach for it that way, and I can't not live by that rhythm now. That rhythm is kind of ingrained into my life, and then everything else is built around it.
I absolutely love that. And you're not scrolling your phone while you're having tea time, right? You're not looking at the news or replying to social media. None of that, right? You're
Yeah,
being present.
it's easy. It's easy to do, right? It's
Sure.
easy to say, okay, well, I'm going to drink a beverage, so I'm going to get on my phone, and it is a daily reminder of like, no, actually, everyone on social media can wait.
Yeah.
Everyone, if it's not my own children or someone like on fire,
Hmm.
everything can wait, and I need a few minutes to create the space. And a lot of times now, life is really crowded. I have a book coming out, so I will take every drive time and silence my phone, no podcast, no consuming anything. I'll take my morning and evening circadian walks. I'll do the same thing. No podcast, no
Mm.
music. Even though I love podcasts, I love listening to them.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I have to take space and just have complete mental white noise space. So I do it during tea time and I do it during walks and sometimes post work in the car as well. And so I really encourage people to make more space because we'll never learn to control the mind or that mental inflammation, that kind of anguish and angst and stress, if we're not making that kind of space.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I need to rethink my practice. I do a functional tea with of all things, a chocolate bone broth powder is my jam. I do it once a day, and it's my time to just decompress midday, check in with myself. I'm a vata. I'm pretty anxious and overwhelmed quite a lot. And it's my time to say, it's okay, Kevin. Let's just come back to earth. I have a morning practice that is also more of a meditative practice as well. But I love that, having checkpoints throughout the day, incorporating that. Doing a tea sounds like a wonderful thing. All right. Well, Shivani, I want to, as we're wrapping up here, I want to give people the opportunity to connect with you. We've mentioned briefly your podcast, your book. I think maybe we even mentioned your website. Where are we going to send people who are interested, want to learn more, perhaps get the book, work with you, etc.?
For sure. So my website is my name, shivanigupta.com. And on my website, you'll find my book, The Inflammation Code. You'll find my Ayurvedic supplements and teas called Fusionary Formulas. And I made a special code for your audience, Silver Edge. Will give them 15% off at Fusionary if they want to try some Ayurvedic teas and things like that. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Shivani, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. I appreciate you being here, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us, but really your passion for this. I love the work you're doing and just encourage you to keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, that's our show for today, folks. If you are interested in learning how the Silver Edge Collective program can help you feel lean, strong, and confident again, you guys can find a link to learn more in the show notes for this episode. You guys can find that on whatever app you're currently listening to this on, or head over to silveredgefitness.com/389. As we wrap up our time together today, you can show your support for this show in two important ways. The first is to tell a friend about this podcast and encourage them to give it a listen. The second is for you YouTube folks to please click the like and subscribe buttons, and for you podcast folks to please give this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.